G'day everybody, Matt Moate here, the Principal Consultant of MatthewMoate.com, and I'm here to answer another question from my hashtag AskMattMoate that was posed to me recently. The question was asked through a direct message, so privately, so I don't think the person was necessarily looking for public acknowledgement, but if you're watching this, thank you very much for the question. I think it's quite an important one, and one that I wanted to have a crack at answering with a few suggestions, and certainly not all the suggestions and comprehensive that I've been talking to people about, but some of the key points that I thought would be interesting for people to hear about. I'd also like to acknowledge my colleagues at the Strategy Road Swarm. We're a collective of values-based aligned consultants, and a number of us are in the ag space, so I've kicked this around with them as well, and I value their input into this. So the question essentially stems around, with the current COVID travel restrictions, how are employers and primary producers in the ag space going to make their seasonal work attractive potentially to a new cohort of workers outside of perhaps the traditionally relied upon international backpacker market? And I think it's a really important question because it's all about how things are changing and new ways of doing things. For me, and for everybody, I think we can all agree that any job needs to be attractive, whether it's the industry, the job, the employer, and the perception of that. And unfortunately, in this day and age, we often hear all the negative stories around seasonal workers, whether it's poor living conditions that have been offered up, or pay rates not being correct, or being paid at all, etc. And we know that's that's a minority situation, that most primary producers are doing the right thing, but unfortunately that can taint the perception of a whole industry. So the only way we can fight that is by telling the positive stories. There's obviously ability for every primary producer and region and so forth to tell the positive stories about the opportunities of work in their region, whether it's even outside of the work itself, but getting back to nature and making connections, perhaps meeting new people that you can travel to the next destination with. So I think telling those stories is really important. As part of that storytelling, the second point that I'd make is also around the use of technology in agriculture, and that we're not the same industry that we were 15 or 20 years ago. We're not manually using secateurs to prune these vineyards, for example, like the one behind me. There's battery packs and all the work health and safety that goes behind it. So it's about promoting and showing the work health and safety and so forth for workers, so they feel comfortable in the jobs. There's even other technologies, and I'll give a shout out here to Mark Snellgrove at Taglog, who they're developing and launching out a digitisation of the workforce platform, where through piecemeal work and so forth, they're essentially gamifying it for the workers, so they can actually see the tasks that they're completing and being approved for being completed, and knowing exactly what they're earning as they go. So it's really creating efficiencies and productivity in this work, because they're getting on the spot understanding of where they're at versus potentially their other workers and perhaps what they did yesterday or whatever. From an employer perspective, that sort of system is also massively impacting the opportunity on the regulatory side of things to make sure that they're paying the workers the right wages, etc. So when and if, hopefully not, but if there's a fair work claim or things like that, or you can speak to employers about their lack of productivity versus against other workers, etc., then you're fully covered. So there's opportunities on both sides of the workforce there. The other point that I'd really like to raise, that I think is a really interesting one and potentially of value, is the agri-tourism opportunity for regions. So we know there's a lot of grey nomads floating around, and this is just one cohort. There could be many others that we could consider, and put your suggestions below, where we promote the tourism opportunity in the region along with the work opportunity. So come to our region, you can do this work, you can earn some money, and you'll also experience these tourism opportunities, and aligning our tourism associations in regions to our primary producers as well to deliver those opportunities. It's perhaps something that is a little bit outside the box, but I think there's a real opportunity for it. Obviously, connecting people to the jobs is really important as well. The South Australian Government, through Primary Industry Region South Australia, recently launched seasonaljobs.sa.gov.au, which is great for South Australia. Obviously, if other states are doing it, I'd love to see connections and linkages between those different state portals for the jobs, and potentially that portal could be used by regions or even SATC, the South Australian Tourism Commission, to promote the tourism opportunities in those regions along with the jobs, which could make things a lot more attractive. The other thing is obviously for regions to demonstrate the value of their primary producers to that region. I'm thinking about campaigns like Chris Sands' Totally Locally campaign, which really promotes to people within regions what the value is of them spending their money, at the local, mechanic, at the local bakery, etc. Perhaps we need to obviously extend a campaign like that and show what the value is for, helping out these primary producers and doing this work, buying from them directly, all those sorts of things as well. So not just the businesses back in the township, but also the primary producers that are out in the paddocks delivering value into the region. So they're just a few points. Certainly not, as I said, not inclusive, or not everything, but some points that I've been thinking about over the last few days with this question that I wanted to share with you. I'd love more questions, #AskMattMoate, and also please put your comments below. How do we make seasonal work more attractive for a new cohort of people outside of the international backpacker market? So thanks again for listening. Have a great day, and we'll see you again on another #AskMattMoate question and answer.